Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Seekers of the Supernatural. I'm your moderator, Tony Spera, along with special guest Addie, and Ed Warren, and Lorraine Warren. Tonight, Addie is going to talk about a haunting that occurred to her in her home that she had lived in previously for about 15 years. Suddenly, phenomena began to occur, and she'll tell us all about it tonight, and she had to call in the Warrens, of course. I think what I'd like to start out, before I talk to Addie, thanks for coming on, Addie, is to ask Lorraine and Ed about the house itself, to set up how you got the call and what happened in the home prior to you going in.
Well, Addie had contacted us and told us about phenomena that was occurring in this home. At that time, Addie was running it as a bed and breakfast. It's a beautiful old home, beautiful furnishings, and told us about things that were occurring, not just to her, her two children, and her husband, but also to people who would be guests in the home. They would hear the knocking, they would hear the rapping, they would hear the footsteps in the home. The home is a very old home, extremely old home, and Tony, it's not only is it an old home, but it's also on a very old route going through an area in the Litchfield Hills.
How old is the home?
1809.
1909?
1809.
1809, Tony.
Okay, so it's like 100 and whatever, 80 years
Right,
old, or 185.
and they were renovating it back to its original. All of it, the stripping, the wallpaper, they were doing a great deal. Many times we know that when you start to do things where you're making renovations in a home, that is enough to trigger off spirit phenomena. Where a ghost or someone had once been able to walk through a doorway in a certain area, and now that doorway no longer exists. And with Addie, many changes had taken place in this home.
Plus the fact that she had a couple of daughters too, children.
No, she has a boy and a girl.
A boy and a girl.
Yeah, she has a boy and a girl.
What do you think then spawned this occurrence?
Well, I think what gave it the energy, I think the renovations in the house, I think the fact of the energy from the two children would be enough for the spirit phenomena to feed off from and enable it to become manifest to the extent that it did.
But I believe that things were happening there before you even moved in, right?
Oh, yes.
Because you had got statements from people.
The house had been haunted for a history of well over 30 years before we bought the house. When we were looking at the house with the real estate agent, we noticed that there were two staircases, and one of the doorways leading up to the front staircase had been nailed shut. And no one had lived on the second floor for 30 years.
That's not good.
One of the windows of the bedroom was broken, and vines had grown in through the window and all throughout the whole bedroom.
So nobody ever went up there?
No one did, except in 1955, there was a great flood in the Torrington area, and these people had taken in people from the Torrington area, friends of theirs, 40 of them, and let them live on the second floor. These people had no place to go, and after a week, they came downstairs, they all left, they fled. They said there was something on the second floor that didn't want them up there, and they left. And other phenomena happened, but we didn't know about it at the time when we bought the house. They sold it to us without telling us about that. So we got a bargain. We got a beautiful federal colonial, 1809, 44 acres for $60,000.
Wow.
How many acres?
44.
44 acres.
And what year did you buy the home?
Bought it 20 years ago.
So like 1976, 77?
My God.
It was a very good price.
I'll give her $45,000 now.
You're right.
Well, we were wondering what was wrong with the house. My husband went through it thoroughly and couldn't find anything structurally wrong with the house. And we
your
moved
husband's
in.
a carpenter, right?
An engineer, but he worked his way through college as a carpenter. We moved into the house and we had a big argument. I told him, I said, stop leaving the doors open. You're letting the dogs out. He said, I'm not leaving the doors open. He said, you're leaving the doors open.
Wow.
And this argument went back and forth, and then he pointed to the back door. He said, I can lock this door, turn my back on it in this room, then turn around, and this door's open. And so that night, we went around and we locked up every window, every door in the house, and as we went to bed, my husband said, I feel that we're locking something in with us. We're not locking something out. And then that morning, we got up and we came downstairs. Every door was open. every door. And the dogs were out on the lawn, and we became hysterical. We didn't know what was opening the doors. We couldn't understand what was happening in the house.
It had to be somebody from inside then, right?
Without a doubt. We realized there was something in the house with us.
How long after you moved into this start?
Immediately.
Immediately?
Immediately. We bought it during the summer. We were getting into fall. It was getting colder. We didn't know what was happening. And I just remember one day I just stood in the dining room and I said, I don't know who's opening the doors, but if you don't stop, I'll go next door, because we do live next door to a Catholic church. And I said, I'll bring a priest over and I'll have him bless the house. And then the doors stayed closed. But we had other phenomena that happened. We had footsteps up in our attic, and it was terrifying. We could just hear heavy footsteps going back and forth, back and forth. And my husband,
like a heavy man?
Yes,
I remember that. I remember
loud,
that.
even steps.
When was it? Like in the daytime or at nighttime?
Daytime, nighttime, but up in the attic. And my husband would insist on going up there, and I would beg him not to go up there, and we'd never find anything up there.
And sometimes you got to beg him to go up there.
Well, he was pretty fearless about making confrontations with it. I was terrified. I was beginning to realize that it wasn't a person we were dealing with. In his mind, he was still hoping to find a person that he could attribute this too, because after we bought the house, we did have people come back. They thought it still belonged to the previous owners, and we had to change the locks, and so we were finding real people in the house, and he was hoping he was going to find a child or a kid breaking into the house.
Trying to think logically.
Yes, yes. We always tried to base all the problems on the house to something in reality first. We would have the piano play, and we would run into the library, and it would stop, and we would think, well, maybe the cat walked across it, but it sounded like classical music. How could the cat do that? We had loud, explosive noises in the house, followed by breaking glass, and we could find no explanation for those either. And we thought, well, maybe there's an underground...
You didn't find no broken glass either, right?
We thought maybe there's an underground cave, and then my husband thought, well, maybe we're going through a time warp or something. We never really thought about in the terms of a ghost, a haunting, or a demon. Then I started to see people in the house. I saw a previous owner that died. I saw